just give you a few headlines that's been going on. There was a really interesting piece about Representative Donna Edwards. Donna Edwards, for those of you who may know, is running for the U.S. Senate in Maryland, and it's basically it's a Washington Post piece, and it's just about basically how Kara Mosley Braun is the only Black woman that we've had sit in the Senate. And when you think about a group of 100 people who should represent the United States of America, right? Think about all our complexity, our diversity, just think about all the difference that exists, right? All the representation that's possible, all the different combinations. And the fact that we've only had one Black woman that has sat in that seat, that has sat in that room, it's boggling, right? So if Representative Edwards does win her primary and then wins the Senate race, which they're thinking it's likely because it's Maryland, it's a heavily blue Democratic area, she makes history because she becomes number 2. And what I did not know about Donna Edwards is her background is similar to my own. Like I've followed her a little bit. I mean, not being in Maryland, I haven't paid close enough attention, but I've seen different people reference her. Some of it has been, well, she's going up against the establishment. She's a progressive candidate. Why isn't Bernie Sanders supporting her? There's been so much different. There's been different amounts of buzz around her. Most recently, Ben Jealous, former president of the NAACP, endorsed her. But her platform, her proposals, I mean, for her district, she is definitely putting forth an agenda that is representative of everything that we as progressives are saying we're looking for. She is Fight for 15. She's, raising for the cap for Social Security. I mean, there's so many things that she's touching on. It's like, yes, this is what we want. And if I were living her district, I'd get the benefit of having someone who represents me, not just by her policies, but by her background, her experience. What I just found out from reading this piece on her was that she was a single mother going through law school. When she went to law school, she was a single mom. And there's so few people who actually know that struggle. I mean, as soon as I read that piece of her bio, I was like, oh my God, that's me. I was a single mama too, going through law school, and it is hard. You have to work smarter. You don't get the extra long hours in the library like other people do. You don't get the same, time to blow off steam because you go from class to doing whatever you can do before you have to go do pickup, depending upon how old your kids are. You may have after school program, you may have smaller kids, you may have babies. I mean, it just depends, just in life general, parenting is difficult. And then you add on the task of trying to go through law school, which is one of the most grueling experiences, academically imaginable. So definitely, I mean, that part just piqued my interest somewhere. So really good piece, but the piece was just talking about, they quoted an older woman as saying, if she becomes Senator Edwards, when she sits in that room, we all sit in that room. So it brings the conversation back into, as we talk about historical first, we talk about representation, like the importance of having, the identity politics plays in, selection for different positions or offices. Like, does it matter? Should it matter that we haven't had the same conversation happen with POTUS's Supreme Court nominee, right? We haven't had a Black woman Supreme Court justice. Shouldn't he have nominated? That question came up. Shouldn't he have nominated a sister? Because we haven't had one, and there's so many brilliant women out there that could fit that role. And so it's like a balancing act, right? The idea of someone who represents me, not just like ideology wise, but also like an experience. So this is someone who understands the complexities firsthand. I'm already calling her Senator Edwards, right? Like Representative Edwards, she is already someone who understands the challenge of the equal pay, right? As a single mother, she understands the childcare issues that are facing, millions of women, nationwide, right? Like she would be a voice amongst, the madness, who actually has firsthand knowledge of these issues. And I think from what they've documented, that there's only been one single mom to serve, right, in the Senate. And that was Senator Hattie Caraway of Kansas. And that was in the 30s. So we haven't had a single mother in the Senate in 80 years, approximately, give or take. Like, Wow, that there is just so much there. When you think about, single women headed households and the challenges and stuff that are affecting, and many of the issues that are, ahead of us in the nation, in terms of whether we're talking about raising the minimum wage in the fight for 15, whether we're talking about moving from, closing the gap in affordable health in the affordable health care, and moving towards a universal health care, if that's what we go to. We talk about, again, paid family leave. I mean, paid family leave and sick leave. If you're a single parent, and it's not just single moms, we say single moms primarily because most single parent households tend to be women, but we have single dads too, right? So when we're talking about childcare, crucial when you're talking about a one income family. I mean, it's crucial in general for any family. When we talk about one income and affordable childcare, huge, right? When you're talking about paid family leave and sick leave, the ability to take off work, that's a luxury that some of us do have that many people do not. Do I choose between losing out on a day's pay and staying home and taking care of my sick kid? Do I, if I don't have health insurance, and yes, there are chip type programs available in many places. There was actually another article I was reading recently that showed that there are many children, Black and Latino children, that are eligible for chip, but their parents are just not even aware the program is available to them, right? Because there are families who may not receive benefits in a more traditional sense, whose children would still be able to benefit from the chip program, but they're just not aware. So in those cases, you might have someone who either they personally don't have health insurance or they're not aware of insurance being available for the kids. So do I gamble with this just being like a cold thing, or do I take my kid to the emergency room or some type of urgent care and incur a possible bill that I can't really afford down the line? So there are all these different considerations that someone with the background of Representative Edwards, Donna Edwards, would be able to understand in a different light than, let's say people who have always had a stay-at-home wife or whatever the case may be, or come from a different type of background. Like, there are just certain challenges. And so representation, is so many things. So it's exciting, the idea of having a Black woman in that role. Like, it's exciting. Like, my daughter could look up and say, hey, she looks like me. But at the same time, having someone whose ideas represent the experience, right? Because it's that experience. And for some of us, our identity, like whether we're women or race, sometimes that those experiences do actually relate and do inform, legislation and other priorities. However, on the flip side, sometimes that the ideology that we require to move forward issues such as equal pay, welfare reform, and not welfare reform as in we're kicking people off, but welfare reform as we're strengthening the safety net for American families, that we're making sure that people have the opportunity, resources, and means to get from point A to B and beyond, right? So that's, people who have these mindsets, people who understand these very basic principles of equity, they may not always look like us. But in this case, it's like a double bonus. So that was just, what I thought was really interesting about her. And I didn't really know any of it because I didn't really pay attention because I'm not in her jurisdiction. And I think that this makes me want to look into some of the other candidates that are running in some of these hard fought races to kind of just see who else is out there. Because as we talk about this progressive movement, and again, we talk about progressive politics, we talk about when again people in there and stuff. Just because people are saying yes, I stand with Bernie Sanders, we really need to be evaluating the politics and where they stand and what their actual story is, because they may or may not actually be the most progressive person running. Just my 2 cents.